Welcome to U-Certify Computer Cloud Plus CV0-004 Must-Know Glossary Terms Part 3.
Term: Development environments. Definition: environments used in the creation and testing of new cloud-based services and primarily used by software programmers and DevOps groups.
Term: dig. Definition: a Linux command line utility used to resolve hostnames to IP addresses using a DNS name server.
Term: digital signature algorithm, DSA. An asymmetrical encryption that uses a private key and a public key. PKI is the framework that uses protocols such as DSA for encryption. With PKI and DSA, the common implementation is an asymmetrical protocol using a public and private key pair, such as DSA, to set up an encrypted connection to exchange symmetrical keys. Then the symmetrical keys are used to perform bulk encryption and decryption, since they are faster and require less processing.
Term: discretionary access control, DAC. Definition: gives users the ability to grant or assign rights to objects and make access decisions. Term: durable storage. Definition: storage volumes that retain data if the virtual machine is removed or deleted. Term: elasticity. Definition: the ability to automatically and dynamically add resources such as storage, CPUs, memory, servers, and network capacity. Term: ephemeral storage. Definition: storage volumes that do not retain data if the virtual machine is removed or deleted. Term: event correlation. Definition: a method or process that makes sense out of a large number of reported events from different sources and identifies the relationships between the events. Term: extended metadata. Definition: an extended list of data that can be attached to a data file for detailed index schemas. Term: extending the scope. Definition: adding new features and capacity to your cloud deployment. Term: extensible markup language, XML. Definition: a standard that is a flexible way to describe data, create information formats, and electronically share structured data between computing systems. Term: fault tolerance. Definition: a system that will remain operational even after there has been a degradation of its systems. Term: Federal Information Security Management Act, FISMA. Definition: a U.S. federal law that outlines the framework to protect federal government information, operations, and facilities. Term: Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program, FedRAMP. Definition: a U.S. federal government-wide program that outlines the standards for a security assessment, authorization, and continuous monitoring for cloud products and services. Term: federations. Definition: multiple organizations sharing the same application. The federated identity management approach allows all participants to consolidate resources. Users share a common set of policies and access rights across multiple organizations. Term: file backups. Definition: backups of storage folders and files that you selected with your backup software to another storage location for later access. Term: FIPS 140-2. Definition: National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, publication that coordinates the requirements and standards for cryptography modules. Term: generic routing encapsulation, GRE. Definition: a standardized network tunneling protocol that is used to encapsulate any network layer protocol inside a virtual link between two locations. GRE is commonly used to create tunnels across a public network that carries private network traffic. Term: graphical user interface, GUI. Definition: a graphical representation commonly used to create, configure, manage, and monitor cloud resources and services. Term: harden. Definition: the process of disabling all unused services, ports, and applications on a server to make it as secure as possible. Term: Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA. Definition: the standard for protecting medical patient data.
Companies that work with protected health information must ensure that all of the required physical, network, and process security measures are in place and followed to meet HIPAA compliance requirements. Term: high availability. Definition: the ability of a resource to remain available after a failure of a system. Term: horizontal scaling. Definition: a scaling that involves extra compute capacity and doesn't require downtime. Term: horizontal server scalability. Definition: an ability to add additional servers to expand workload processing capability. Term: hot site. Definition: two fully redundant cloud data centers in sync with each other, with the standby site backing up the primary in real time in the event of a failure. Term: hotfix. Definition: a software update type that is intended to fix an immediate and specific problem with a quick release procedure. Term: hypervisor affinity. Definition: rules to ensure that particular VMs never run on the same VM host hardware. These are necessary to ensure resiliency if a VM host fails. Term: ifconfig. Definition: a Linux command line utility used to verify and configure the local network interfaces. Term: image backups. Definition: copies of complete hard drive volumes. They are also often called disaster backup, cloning, ghosting, image backups, or block-level backups. Term: instance initialization time. Definition: the time required to start a new compute instance. Term: International Organization for Standardization, ISO 27001. Definition: a quality standard that ensures a cloud provider meets all regulatory and statutory requirements for its product and service offerings. Term: International Traffic in Arms Regulations, ITAR. Definition: restricts information from being disseminated to certain foreign entities that could assist in the import or export of arms. ITAR is a list of data security requirements that cloud companies can certify as being compliant with to meet this U.S. requirement. Term: intrusion detection system, IDS. Definition: a system that detects suspicious activity on the network in real time by passively monitoring traffic looking for signatures of network activity that indicate an intrusion based on predefined rule sets and that generates alerts. Term: intrusion prevention system, IPS. Definition: a system that detects suspicious activity on the network in real time by passively monitoring traffic looking for signatures of network activity that indicate an intrusion based on predefined rule sets, and that actively shuts down the intrusion. Term: IP security, IPsec. Definition: a framework or architecture that uses many different protocols to provide integrity, confidentiality of data, and authentication of data on a TCP/IP network. Term: ipconfig. Definition: a Windows command line utility used to verify and configure the local network interfaces. Term: JavaScript Object Notation, JSON. Definition: a lightweight data interchange format standard that is easily readable and easy for computing systems to parse and generate. Term: jitter. Definition: the variable delay between packets from source to destination. Term: jumbo frame. Definition: Ethernet frame larger than the standard 1518 bytes. Term: latency. Definition: the time for a packet to travel from source to destination. Term: Layer 2 Tunneling Protocol, L2TP. Definition: a remote access communications protocol that is a common method for connecting to a remote device over the Internet. Term: load balancing. Definition: distributing traffic to redundant servers to achieve high availability and scalability. Load balancing functions may include SSL/TLS termination, compression, and session tracking. Term: local backup. Definition: created when data in a data center is stored on its primary storage array and a backup operation is performed. Term: logging. Definition: the detailed transaction records generated by all elements in the cloud for the transactions and interactions of a device or system. Term: maintenance window. Definition: a scheduled time that maintenance can be performed and outages are planned for the ongoing support of operations. Term: managed security as a service. MASAS. Definition: companies that specialize in cloud-based managed security services. Term: mandatory access control, or MAC. Definition: highly controlled systems where the access is defined by strict levels of access that are common in secure environments such as defense or financial systems. Maximum Transmission Unit, EMTU. The standard largest Ethernet frame size that can be transmitted into the network, 1,518 bytes. Term: mean time between failure, MTBF. Definition: the life expectancy of a hardware component. In other words, how long it is expected to operate before a failure. Term: mean time system recovery. Definition: the time for a resilient system to complete recovery from a service failure. Term: mean time to repair, MTTR. Definition: the time required to repair a damaged hardware component. Term: mean time to switchover, MTSO. Definition: the time required from when a service failure occurs to when the backup system resumes operations. Term: memory ballooning. Definition: a hypervisor function that allows the hypervisor to reclaim unused memory from a VM running on top of the hypervisor and allocates that memory for other uses. Term: metadata. Definition: part of a file or sector header in a storage system that is used to identify the content of the data. Term: metric. Definition: a standard of measurement that defines the conditions and the rules for performing the measurement and for understanding the results of a measurement. Term: Motion Picture Society of America, MPAA. Definition: publishes best practices for storing, processing, and delivering protected media and content securely over the Internet. Term: multi-factor authentication. Definition: an access control technique that requires several pieces of information to be granted access. Multi-factor implementations usually require you to present something you know, such as a username-password combination, and something you have, such as a smart card, fingerprint, or a constantly changing token number off an ID card. Term: National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST. Definition: a U.S. federal organization that defines cloud computing standards and models. Term: NetStat. Definition: network statistics utility found in Windows and Linux used to see which network connections are open to remote applications. Term: network capacity. Definition: the available network capacity, usually measured by bandwidth. Term: network latency. Definition: the delay or time it takes for data to traverse a network, the time measurement of a network packet to travel from source to destination. Term: network time protocol, NTP. Definition: a protocol that allows all devices to synchronize to a central clock or time service. Term: non-durable storage. Definition: storage volumes that do not retain data if the virtual machine is removed or deleted. Term: NSLOOKUP. Definition: Windows-based command line utility used to resolve hostnames to IP addresses using a DNS server. Term: obfuscation. Definition: a means to complicate, confuse, or bewilder. Obfuscating is used to hide information in stored data in the cloud. Term: object. Definition: a measurable property of some resource, like CPU utilization of VM. Term: object ID. Definition: a pointer to a stored piece of data that is a globally unique identifier. Term: offline storage. Definition: storage that requires an administrator to make it available by inserting a tape or other media into a storage system for retrieval.
Offline storage can be transported to remote storage facilities or stored in vaults for protection.
Term: on demand. Definition: the ability of consumers to access self-service portals to create additional cloud services on demand.
Term: online storage. Definition: a storage system that can be accessed at any time without the requirement for a network administrator to mount the media into a storage system. Term: orphaned resources. Definition: cloud-based services that are left over when a service terminates and are no longer needed or used.
Term: outage time. Definition: the total time of a single outage measured from when the outage began until it ended.
Term: packet loss. Definition: the percentage or number of packets that are dropped in the network. Term: patch. Definition: software that is intended to update an application, operating system, or any other software-based system to fix or improve its operations. Term: Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard, PCI DSS. Definition: sets the requirements to guarantee that companies which process, store, or transmit credit card information offer secure processing and handling of credit card data. Term: penetration testing. Definition: the process of testing your cloud access to determine whether there is any vulnerability that an attacker could exploit. Term: performance testing. Definition: testing that puts a demand or load on your application or compute system and measures the response. Term: ping. Definition: a command line utility that is used to verify that a device is available on the network and to get a reading of the response time at that moment in time. Term: point-to-point tunneling protocol, PPTP. Definition: allows a remote PC or network to access a remote network, such as a cloud, by encapsulating PPP packets inside of GRE tunnels. Term: privilege escalation. Definition: a user or service receiving account privileges that they are not allowed to possess. Term: production environment. Definition: an environment that hosts the live and in-use applications that an organization uses in its normal course of business. Term: public key infrastructure, PKI. Definition: a standardized set of roles, policies, and procedures used to create, manage, distribute, use, store, and revoke digital certificates, and manage public-private key encryption. High-level programming language. Term: quality assurance/test environments. Definition: environments that are used for the testing of software updates or new applications. Term: quality of service, or QoS. Definition: a general networking term for the ability of the network to provide differentiated services based on information in the Ethernet packet. Term: recovery point objective, RPO. Definition: the restore point that you recover to in the event of an outage. The RPO is the amount of data that may be lost when restarting the operations after a disaster. Term: recovery time objective, RTO. Definition: the amount of time that a system can be offline during a disaster. It is the amount of time it takes to get a service online and available after a failure. Term: redundant array of independent disks, RAID. Definition: involves combining physical disks to achieve redundancy. Term: replication. Definition: the process of placing copies of stored data on more than one system for disaster recovery and resiliency purposes. Term: representational state transfer, REST. Definition: a protocol that communicates between devices over HTTP/HTTPS. This is a method of providing device communications over IP networks. Term: resource pooling. Definition: the allocation of compute resources into a group or pool. Then these pools are made available to a multi-tenant cloud environment. Term: response time. Definition: the time to complete an operation. Term: revest cipher 4, RC4. Definition: uses a shared key to encrypt and decrypt a stream of data. RC4 was commonly used to secure wireless connections and web transactions, as an encryption protocol used in SSL. Term: Revest Cipher 5, RC5. Definition: the replacement for RC4. It is also a symmetrical block cipher algorithm that uses a variable length key.
Term: Reverse Shamir Adleman, RSA. Definition: an asymmetrical encryption that uses a private key and a public key. PKI is the framework that uses protocols such as RSA for encryption. With PKI and RSA, the common implementation is an asymmetrical protocol using a public and private key pair, such as RSA, to set up an encrypted connection to exchange symmetrical keys. Then the symmetrical keys are used to perform bulk encryption and decryption, since they are faster and require less processing.
Term: Role-Based Access Control, RBAC. Definition: a method in which access rights are granted to or restricted from users based on which roles they perform in an organization. Term: Rollback. Definition: the process of returning software to a previous state. Term: Route command. Definition: a command line utility that displays the workstation's or server's local routing tables. Term: Runbooks. Definition: software processes that perform automated tasks and responses that simplify and automate repetitive tasks. Term: Scripting. Definition: a method of running configuration commands in the cloud to automate cloud deployments and security services.